Hello, this is our final group project for CIT 348. For this project, we decided to do a data analysis on Airbnb listings in Columbus, Ohio. This project was made by Daytona Hunter, Maverick Peck, and Nick Walsh. The project we decided to do specifically is studying Airbnb rental listings in Columbus, Ohio. We will be looking at information like rental pricing, reviews, and location to find patterns and correlations between the variables. By examining these values, we can better understand the rental market, which will allow us to provide helpful suggestions for people using Airbnb in Columbus, whether they are hosts or guests. These suggestions can cover ways for hosts to optimize their profits with minimal quality control, as well as strategies for guests to maximize the value that they have for their Airbnb rentals. For the project scope, the dataset we have chosen to work with provides a very wide range of data with over 2,500 records. All of this project will be done using Google Sheets, Microsoft Excel, and Tableau to allow us to use more familiar tools that we already know how to use, on top of a powerful tool like Tableau for great data visualizations. To find more information about the data set, you can click on that link below. I will share this presentation with you. Some of the areas we are going to analyze in this project include the impact of capacity on cost, i.e. how many people could sleep or stay in the Airbnb, the correlation between host metrics and price, the influence of amenities and capacity on price and reviews, and the correlation between location and price. The data set used for this project is sourced from the Inside Airbnb website, which is a web platform that provides publicly available data on Airbnb listings. The data set includes values like listing ID, date, price, the minimum and maximum nights people are allowed to stay, the listing name, location, host metrics, neighborhoods, the amount of beds, bedrooms, and bathrooms, the reviews, and a lot more. There are quite a few terms to memorize in this project, including the ones listed below. The terms for the actual data set are not listed here because there's so many. But if you are interested, you can, again, follow that link in the PowerPoint right here, and I'll share that with you so you can click on it and follow it yourself. Some of these terms include the host metrics, which includes basically just the average of all of the host reviews, basically cleanliness reviews, host communication reviews, and more. Amenities, which include different aspects of the optional aspects of the Airbnb. This includes Wi-Fi, cable TV, a phone, room service, and all that. DNR is something that stands for did not review. There were a lot of records that had no reviews, so we had to fill it in with DNR, because if we deleted the records, we would lose a lot of the data. So we thought it was more valuable to just leave in the did not reviews. Some of the areas of analysis that we did in this project include how the capacity of the Airbnb affects the cost, how the correlation between the host metrics and listing prices affect each other, how amenities and guest capacity impact the price and reviews of the listings, and the correlation between the location of the Airbnb listing and the price of the Airbnb listing. So for analysis 1, we decided to go on how the capacity of the Airbnb affects the daily cost of it. The graph on the right contains a moderate positive correlation between the capacity of the Airbnb, which is the amount of people that can sleep in it, and the cost of the listing on a scale of -1 to +1, -1 being a negative correlation and vice versa. The correlation here is positive 0.59, signifying that the more people that an Airbnb can hold, the more it could sleep, the more money the Airbnb is worth daily. So for the second analysis, we did how amenities impact the price and reviews of the listing. The graph on the right shows the correlation between the amount of amenities and the daily cost of the listing. The graph shows a very weak correlation between the amount of amenities offered and the average review for each of the listings, which the correlation is about 1.0 or 0.17, positive 0.17. This means that there is a very, very weak correlation that could honestly most likely be chalked up to chance, or it could be a faulty data set with people not entering all of the amenities that they actually have for their listing. For the third analysis, we decided to go with the correlation between the host metrics and listing prices. Again, the host metrics refers to the average of all the reviews on the listing and the cost of the listing. You can see there seems to be somewhat of an anomaly for 1-star review Airbnbs being the same cost or actually quite a bit more expensive than 2, 3, 4, and 5-star listing reviews. The correlation coefficient of this analysis is 0.056. The overall correlation coefficient of this data shows an extremely weak correlation, meaning oddly enough, there's almost no correlation between reviews and costs, which most people would actually find odd, which is why I decided to leave this data set in, is that most people would think that the higher review listing, the more it would cost, but in this case, it's actually pretty much arbitrary, the review and the cost of the listing. For analysis 4, we decided to do the correlation between the location and the cost per day in the Columbus area. When looking at the latitude and longitude of the listing, it is pretty obvious that there is a correlation between location and pricing. On this slide, you can see that there is a heat map showing each of the coordinates for each of the listings. Based on the pricing legend at the bottom left, there's a very stark difference between the listings or the listing prices within central Columbus versus the outskirts of the inner city, with the inner city being much more bright red, meaning that the inner city is much more expensive than the outskirts of the town. So this is just another visual that we decided to create that shows the cost difference between central Columbus and the outer area. As you can see, the higher the price, the higher the bar, and in the middle of Columbus, it is much higher, with the price being around $1,300. And the outskirts, you can see there's a piece of data there that says there's one that's $23 a day. So as for the conclusion of this data, the most definitive factors that come into play with the price of the Airbnb seems to be the location and the amount of people that can stay at the Airbnb, as shown in analysis 1 and analysis 4. So a person shopping for Airbnbs on a budget in Columbus should not most certainly stray away from the inner city and focus more on the outskirts if entirely possible. And for hosts, the most effective way to make money does not seem to be high upkeep on your property or high maintenance, as seen as the lack of correlation between rating and price. It seems as if terrible service still gets you a lot of money in the inner city, but they should rather be focused most entirely on where their Airbnb is located, aka if it's in the middle of the city, they probably will make a lot of money.